Okay, so let's talk about chords. First of all, what are chords? A chord is a combination of musical tones. One very common type of chord is the triad, a three-note chord. Triads consist of a root, the note from which the chord grows, a third, the third note up the scale from the root, and a fifth, the fifth note up the scale from the root. For example, the C major chord has its root C, a third E, which is the third note up the scale from C, and a fifth G, which is the fifth note up the scale from C. Chord progressions are a succession of chords in time and provide the foundation for writing a song or a composition. A couple of broad brushstroke comments on chords are that major chords, like the C major chord, sound bright and cheerful, and minor chords, like the D minor chord, sound somber. C major, D minor. Most chord progressions have a mixture of chord types in them, such as major and minor chords, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Depending on the style you're writing in, you might use augmented, diminished, or seventh chords, to name a few options. To get started writing on your project, I'm going to provide a chord progression for you to work with. And here it is. A minor to D minor to C major to E minor. And back to the A minor. Writing chord progressions is a topic that I could go on about. If you want to learn more about how to develop an original chord progression, I suggest checking out my other class, Create a Chord Progression in a Major Key. That class is a deep dive into creating an original chord progression with variations. Now I'm going to give you a few tips for how to make your chords sound a bit more interesting. One technique is to use arpeggios when playing your chords. For example, another way to add variation is to experiment with the rhythm that you use. For example, you could play each chord 4 times per measure as quarter notes. Or you can play each chord 4 times per measure with quarter notes in the left hand and eighth notes in the right hand. This is really useful in a pre-chorus or chorus section of a song to give the illusion that the music is moving faster. It helps to build the energy in your piece. Another technique you could use to vary the sound of your chords is to use chord inversions. When you invert a chord, essentially you turn it upside down by placing the bottom note on the top. As an example, let's go back to our C major triad. We have root position where the C is at the bottom. For the first inversion, we move the C up an octave. And now the third, E, is on the bottom of the chord. For the second inversion, we move the third, E, up an octave. And now the fifth, the G, is on the bottom. So those are 3 different positions to play the same chord, C major, in. As you can hear, the quality of the chord changes when you use a different position. All chords can be inverted in this way. For example, let's go back to the chord progression for your project. One way I might play these chords is with the A minor in root position, to the D minor in second inversion with the A at the bottom, to the C major in second inversion with the G at the bottom, to the E minor in first inversion, also with the G at the bottom. Using these inversions in this example makes playing the chord progression in my left hand a lot more efficient, but it also changes the color of the chord progression. Let's listen to the chord progression using all of the chords played in root position first. And now let's hear it again using the inversions I just described. So that's the end of our lesson on chords. I hope that was helpful for you, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you do with your piece.